Problem. Hey, what's up, everyone? So just a correction. One thing I said last night, we were talking about Hechsher Kelim. We spoke about the machloket, whether chametz is considered hetera bala or isura bala, nafkamina, whether you would be required libun or whether hagala would be enough. So I said that according to everybody, on Pesach itself, chametz is considered isura bala, which is true, and that before Pesach, so there are those who say that it's hetera bala, those who say it's isura bala, but the bottom line is we assume that the Shulchan Aruch paskins that it's isura bala, but we take into consideration other factors if they are to be lenient. The reason you can't do Hagalat Kelim after the time when you can no longer eat chametz is not directly related to this question, although it's somewhat connected. The reason is this: when we do Hagalat Kelim, so the idea is you take your pot or your cutlery or whatever it is and you place it in boiling water. So whatever taste of chametz, whatever forbidden taste was absorbed into the pot or into the utensils is now going to be released back into the water. So the number one, and therefore, in the same way that when you cooked via heat through a medium of boiling liquid, it could absorb. Now you place it in boiling liquid again, and it's going to release the taste. The number one question that all the Mefarshim ask when it comes to Hagalat Kelim, not just by Pesach, is okay, you're going to put the pot into the water, and it's going to release the taste. Now, once it's released the taste, right, it's going to go in the water, and it's going to absorb the taste again, right? So what do you do? So there are different explanations that are given. That's why it's one of the reasons why it says when you put the pot inside the water, you shouldn't leave it for too long. You should take it out straight away and then rinse it off. But again, and the Rishonim discuss what's miyad, what's straight away. You leave it. The truth is that if you have the option of leaving it in for not long enough or leaving it in for too long, better to leave it in for too long, right? But essentially, we rely on two things. We rely on tamlif gam, and we rely on bittul. So if, first of all, that's why we say, when you bring your pot or you want to do hagala in a pot, you have to wait 24 hours since the last use. Therefore, whatever taste was absorbed in the pot is now a tam nifgam. And although we say that if you have a tam pagum, which is absorbed into the kli, if it was a good taste when it was absorbed, so it's still a problem, you still have to kasher it. Nonetheless, if it absorbs a tam pagum in the first place, that we say that we're not concerned about. That is kosher. So that is one, and that's why in all the hagalot kelim that you do, everybody is told, not to use your kelim for 24 hours before you bring them. That's one explanation. But the other one is, essentially, we say that there is 60 times in the water compared to what is in the taste that's been released from the pot, and therefore, once the taste is released, it's going to be nullified, it's going to be mabutal, and therefore, even if it's reabsorbed again, it's already after it's gone through bittul, etc. Now that, you understand, would apply before Pesach, because as we've discussed, there is a nullification of chametz before Pesach, whereas on Pesach, it's not going to be the case. There are other explanations brought in the Rishonim as well. Some say it's not, barnat. Not going to get into it now. But the point is that those sorts apply before Pesach. They don't apply on Pesach itself. So this can be a common question. If somebody goes away during Pesach, goes to an Airbnb or something like that, and you want to kasher the kitchen on Pesach when you get there, it's very, very problematic. It's not so straightforward to be able to do that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Seder night, the halachot of Leil HaSeder. We'll talk about the ke'ara, the plate, the special plate that we have for the Seder. So as we all know, we have a special Seder plate. There's different foods on it. We have the 3 matzot. We discussed this in the share yesterday, I think it was. Right, why do we have 3 matzot? Because everybody says because of Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, or because of the 3 avot, or because of whatever, the symbolism. The real reason why we have 3 matzot is halachic reason, because we need 2 for lechem mishnah and 1 for lechem oni. But the symbolism is nice as well. So that's the 3 matzot. We have maror, as we know. Here also, there's a lot of confusion. When it comes to maror, many people have got 2 types of maror at their Seder, right? We have the chasa, which is the romaine lettuce, and you have the chazeret, right? The horseradish. So people think that the lettuce is whatever, but the real maror is the horseradish. There is no difference halachically, but one's a bitter herb, the other one's a bitter herb. You can use. It's not that when you have maror you have to use lettuce, and you have korech you have to use the horseradish. No, you can use whichever at whatever time. The problem is when we get to maror we have to eat a kazayit. So if you're going to have a kazait of horseradish, it's going to be a very, very bitter night indeed. So that's why we rely on lettuce. I think historically, a lot of communities started using horseradish, maybe because lettuce wasn't available, maybe because of questions of tolaim, of insects, etc. Nowadays, it's very easy. Nowadays, you can buy special lettuce. You still have to rinse it off before Shabbat, but it's grown in special ways and it's free of infestation. So that is in terms of maror. And of course we have the charoset, we have the salt water, we have the karpas, we have the two cooked foods as well. As I mentioned yesterday, all of this needs to be prepared. You should always prepare before Yom Tov, but this year you can't do the preparation on Shabbat, which is Erev Pesach. So it should be done on Erev Shabbat, especially the cooked foods, the zroa and the beitza, which we don't eat. Those are the only foods that are on the Seder plate, not there for us to eat, but they're there as a zeicher of different korbanot. So you would not be able to roast those on Yom Tov if you're not going to eat them. If one forgot to prepare the zroa and the beitza before Shabbat, so one would need to roast them on Yom Tov. You're allowed to cook on Yom Tov, but then you would have to make sure that the following day on Yom Tov that you'll eat them, because then you're cooking for the sake of Yom Tov and not for something else. Okay. So what is the order? Very interesting discussion that comes up in terms of what is the order of the Seder plate. Where do we arrange the different foods? So you tell me it's very, very easy. You have the plate and it has certain sections that are marked off, and where it says chasa, you put the chasa, where it says you put that. Okay, but how do we know? How did the people who made the Seder plates know where to put what? The truth is that there are two different customs, at least two different customs, in terms of how to arrange the food. So we say like this. But Talmud lo nizkar kelva. The truth is that in the Gemara, you go back to Mishnayot and Rabbi Pesachim, go through the whole order of the Seder. It does not mention the plate as such. What it does mention in the Gemara is that on the table you have your matzot, you have your chazeret, you have your which is maror, you have your charoset, and you have these two cooked foods. Okay, the Rishonim said we don't just have them scattered on the table, we have a special bowl, special plate where we place it. And that's what the Shulchan Aruch says as well. Person doesn't have a plate, doesn't have whatever. As long as you have these foods in front of you, that's okay. That is the main thing. These foods need to be placed on the table for the Seder. Not every person sitting at the table needs to have their own Seder plate. It's enough just to have one. And there are different minhagim. There are some people who have just one Seder plate. Some who have the head of every family has their own Seder plate. Some have just one Seder plate, and the head of every family has their own matzot. Okay, different minhagim. All of those are fine. So there's a question. Since we have a number of different foods, where do we put them? So opinion number one is the Rama. He says, "Aklal hu shekol hamukdam b'leil haseder yunach b'ke'ara karov yoter le'orech hased." Okay, so whichever, he says we have to go in a specific order. Whichever food you are going to need first, that is the one that's placed closest to you. In which order on the table? So again, the kara, the plate, mainly relates to the one who is leading, the one who is conducting the Seder. So according for next to that person, whichever food you'll need first would be placed closest to you. Why? Because we have a principle, ein mavirin ala mitzvot. We don't skip over different mitzvot. So in order that you won't have to reach over the other foods, you have that closest. So he says, im yamanech lemashal et hamatzot karov elav v'achlein et hakarpas. If I have the matzot closest to me, and then behind them I have the karpas, so nimtza shebavo lakach et hakarpas lo chlo mudaleg al hamatzot. Then when it comes time to take the karpas, you're going to skip over the matzot. V'yesh b'kach bizui mesuyam lematzot. There's something that's a little bit disparaging in that. Okay, where else do we come across this? By the Rama as well, this principle of ein ma'virin ala mitzvot. We try not to skip over every Shabbat, right? Every Friday night we have the two loaves of challah, which we have for lechem mishnah, and the Rama says that on Friday night, which normally you would take the top one, but the Rama says on Friday night you take the bottom challah. That's the one you take first. Why? According to the Kabbalah. Okay, this is one of a few places where the Rama says Something we do because of Kabbalistic reasons. It says you have to take the bottom challah first. This applies on Friday night, does not apply on Shabbat day, does not apply on Yom Tov. But that is the case on Friday night. So then the question is asked, you're going to skip over the top challah in order to get to the challah that's underneath. So says the Taz, when you hold the two chalot, you should have the bottom one a little bit closer to you so that you're not actually skipping over. So says the Rama, same thing here when we come to the Seder plate. Okay, so the closest to you, according to this opinion, would be the karpas and the salt water, because that's the first thing that you're going to eat. That you're eating already before the Haggadah. Behind them would be the matzot, which you would eat at the beginning of the meal. Behind them would be the maror and the charoset, okay, which are eaten together. The maror is dipped into the charoset, which is then shaken off and eaten. Right, the shank bone and the egg, which are placed right at the back, because no one's going to eat them. As we said, these are just there to remember the Korban Pesach and the Korban Chagiga. Now, so that's the Rama. But then there's another opinion that says, no, we don't have to be so concerned about this. We don't have to have them in this specific order. Meaning, when do we say ein mavirin ala mitzvot? When do we say it's a problem that you're skipping over one mitzvah in order to get to another? By the way, I mentioned last night, according to the Gra, there are 64 mitzvot on Leila Seder. So I'm sure that we count each one of these foods as on the plates as its own matzah, as its own mitzvah. But anyway, so he says, when is it a problem that you're skipping over one to get to the other? That is when you have two mitzvot at the same time, right? And I need to fulfill both right now, so I'm skipping over one. Why? But if one's time is now and one's time is only going to come later, so there's no bizayon in the fact that I'm skipping over it, according to this opinion. He says, each mitzvah has its own time, its own part of the Seder. Okay, so that is the opinion of the Rama, who says it has to be according to the order. Whatever I'm eating first should be closest to me. And there are those who say we don't need to be concerned. Now, Pia Arizal, Yeshna Seder Lomez le'esel sfirot. It's probably very popular today. Lots of Kabbalistic things nowadays are very, very popular. But the Arizal, he has a different order, and he says the order is based on Kabbalistic reasons, and the food is alluding to the 10 sfirot. וכן נוהגים כיום רבים מיוצאי ספרד ומתפללים נפסח ספרד חסידי, ואף בין מתפללי נסח אשכנז יש שנהגו כעלי. So this is the prevalent opinion nowadays amongst the as well. ויש שנוהגים כרמה, ויש שנוהגים כגלה. Right, so there are at least 3 different opinions as to how we should arrange the Seder plate. Like I said, the most common, most popular is people just take out the Seder plates. And it would be according to these other sheets of the Arizal as well, when everything is hinting to the different sfirot. That's why you have another vegetable. That's why you have the 2 types of maror in order to increase, to have the different. But as I said before, the 2 types of maror are interchangeable. They're both the same thing. In many Haggadot nowadays, there are diagrams and pictures of how to arrange the kara. Each of these minhagim has a place in halacha. Rabbi Hanania ben Akasha, Omer, Tzakadosh Baruch Hu, V'Vakot Yisrael, V'chach B'Alem Torah Mitzvot, Shenema Adonai Chavetz Man Ziko Yagdir Torah